This is ABC7 News at 7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you.
I feel more for the community because no one has been captured, but basically I just don't feel like it'll bring my son back.
Justice denied. There is a backlog of cold cases in the city of Palmetto. Despite having one of the smallest populations on the Suncoast, it has one of the highest rates of unsolved murders. What's preventing police from putting these crimes to rest? And what more could be done to bring resolution to the families of the victims? Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Cohn, and welcome to ABC 7 at 7. We'll have more on crime in Palmetto coming up. But first, our top 7 stories at 7. And we begin with the latest on Tropical Storm Cindy, which is taking aim at the Gulf Coast, set to soak some areas with up to a foot of rain. Forecasters expect the storm to make landfall tomorrow with 50-mile-an-hour winds. But parts of the coast have already been drenched with heavy rains. In Georgia, a family had to be rescued after their home was swamped by floodwaters. The downpour and water spouts have left Florida beaches deserted. In New Orleans, along Bourbon Street, people ducking into bars to escape the rain. The governors of Alabama and Louisiana are declaring a state of emergency ahead of Cindy's landfall.
This will be a severe weather event that primarily consists of threats of rain and flooding, but there also is a potential for wind damage. There's an elevated risk of tornadoes as well.
The National Weather Service says flash flooding from torrential rain is the biggest concern. Tornadoes are possible as well. For the latest track on Cindy and how it's affecting our own weather, let's go to Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan. Bob.
Thanks, Alan. Always with landfalling systems, you do get tornadoes, and that's a big concern right now. You can see the satellite imagery showing we're starting to see some convection or thunderstorms around the center, which is still over 100 miles southeast of the border right there of Texas and Louisiana. Notice this large plume of moisture that continues to wrap around it right on into the panhandle of Florida and then eventually places to the left. Now, the winds are at 50 miles an hour, and it looks like it'll stay there at 50 before it makes landfall sometime around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And it looks like the movement is off to the northwest at 9 now. The pressure has been falling ever so slightly at 994 millibars. Typically, that means you have a deepening system or a strengthening system, but it's not going to have much time to get much stronger. So we think 50-mile-an-hour winds will be the case as it makes landfall right there near the border of Texas and Louisiana. The rough weather will be mainly to the right of the center, and you'll see some flooding problems and concerns with some onshore flow there. And then eventually it takes off and spreads off to the Tennessee Valley, bringing rainfall there. But all in all, the tough part of the storm will be during the overnight hours tonight and throughout Thursday morning. Now, as far as the, again, the tracker is concerned, we are looking at some showers and storms, remnants of what was Brett, making its way through Haiti and into the eastern tip of Cuba. Some of this moisture may eventually come back our way early next week, but for the time being, we're not in too much of a situation here. We have a few showers around, a few scattered storms around. The winds are starting to lessen too, and the forecast is calling for winds to be more out of the southeast tomorrow, anywhere from 10 to 15. Much better forecast as we move into Friday for boaters. Well, more on that coming up in a few minutes. Alan?
Thanks, Bob. Severe weather in the Gulf is causing rough surf conditions, but rip currents have actually been strong over the past month. In the last 30 days, Manatee County made 30 rescues, 2 of them related to rip currents, 2 dozens related to rip currents. As a result, Marine Rescue is working to hire 6 additional lifeguards, saying it could be a matter of life and death. Staff numbers are still short of pre-recession levels.
It's a panicked victim. They're being pulled back out into the Gulf. Most of the time they're tired, they're possibly going under. And we look at the fact that if there's not intervention by a professional, that's a possible death.
This month, both Manatee and Sarasota counties have seen deaths related to rip currents. An update on efforts to boost the use of solar energy in Florida. Governor Rick Scott is signing a bill crafted on a constitutional amendment passed by 73% of voters. It extends renewable energy tax breaks to commercial and industrial properties. It also makes equipment exempt from state property taxes. Environmentalists say this could encourage more businesses to use solar energy.
It's a pretty big deal if you can get half of the electricity market to shift towards solar. I think, this is a great first step to make sure that Florida greens our economy, more green jobs, more solar jobs.
The tax break will be in place for the next 2 decades. It could also decrease the cost of solar by creating more competition among solar firms. Manatee County is approving a new ordinance in hopes of preventing more people from driving drunk. Under the ordinance, drivers can leave their cars in bar and restaurant parking lots overnight without being towed. It will go into effect starting on Monday, but there is a caveat. Cars must be picked up by noon the next day. Right now, it only affects the county and not cities like Bradenton and Palmetto, but those communities can opt in.
With the DUI laws, I mean, nobody can afford one of them, and we don't want people to take the chance of injuring somebody else or themselves on their way home. So I think if people knew that they could stay and not have to worry about their vehicle, they'd have a better time and would be more apt to take that cab.
Bradenton's mayor says he supports the idea, but the city hasn't discussed implementing it yet. Manatee Sheriff's Office is hoping to increase its ability to patrol from the air. County commissioners approving $4.9 million to help the agency buy a new helicopter. It already has 2, but one needs a lot of maintenance and will be kept as a backup. More than $1 million of the cost will be paid for with sales tax funds. New developments on a Bradenton man accused of killing his girlfriend's toddler. The trial getting underway today for 37-year-old Richard Williams, who is charged with second-degree murder in the death of William Quincy Pollard in July of 2015. Today, the boy's mother took the stand, describing the hours just before she left her 17-month-old son in her former boyfriend's care. The state attorney's office says that he died as a result of blunt force trauma to his head. Williams denies hitting the boy. The mother says Williams urged her to ask detectives not to perform an autopsy.
It's just scary to think that your kid's getting cut open and looked at, you know.
If convicted, Williams could face life in prison. Venice's trolley service is popular among tourists, but never really lived up to its goal of being a way for residents to get around the city, so that's the end of that. The City Council is cutting the $70,000 from the trolley from the budget upcoming. It's not the only project getting the axe. $40,000 is being cut from funds from Wellfield Park. However, $1 million is being added to the Building Reserve Fund. That money will help cover unexpected costs for building repairs in the city. Right now, 23 buildings are in need of serious repair. The oldest and most crucial is the fire station. And still to come, the Club Elite shooting, one of the most infamous crimes in Palmetto's history. 2 people were killed and more than 20 others were shot, yet an arrest was never made. It's just one case in a list of unsolved crimes. Find out what's hampering the efforts when we return.
I took my first handful of pills, and that's when all my priorities seemed to change.
He would ask to use the bathroom in other people's homes.
He just assumed that they would have medication.
He'd go in their medicine cabinets and steal prescription drugs.
I wish I knew really what these prescription pills were.
We were so naive about the whole drug thing.
These are all synthetic forms of heroin.
Keep your medication locked up because you'll never notice that a pill is gone.
Mind your meds. Learn more from the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids.
It's Lincoln's summer sales event here at Alex Karras Lincoln. Drive a brand new 2017 Lincoln MKC Sports Utility for $249 per month or 2017 MKZ for $299 per month. We are proud to introduce the newest addition to the Lincoln lineup, the all-new 2017 Lincoln Continental. We have a great selection and ready for immediate delivery. Alex Karras Lincoln, affordable luxury, winner of the prestigious 2015 President's Award, serving Florida's Suncoast since 1978. We are located 2 miles north of the Sarasota-Bradenton Airport on US 41.
Are you Goodwill?
Yes, because when I donate
or shop at Goodwill,
I am creating a job. I am Goodwill, yeah.
This is an important medical announcement. Bard IVC filters have been linked to punctured veins and problems with migration. Anyone who's received a Bard IVC filter must receive medical monitoring and may be entitled to substantial compensation. If you have the Bard Recovery G2 or G2 Express filter, you are in a class of patients who should be compensated for some expenses. Call now for a free assessment of your case and potential money damages. This call is confidential. There's no cost and you may be eligible. Juries have awarded millions of dollars to people who should have been warned about the risks of the Bard IVC filters. Call the IVC Filter Hotline if your loved one has received an IVC filter and experienced a vein puncture or required medical monitoring. You must call now.
Call 800-329-3089. 800-329-3089.
Check out My Suncoast Dining on mysuncoast.com, your guide to the foodie lifestyle. ABC7's own Chef Judy serves up her favorite recipes, cooking tips and trends, dining blogs, step-by-step videos, and Suncoast Restaurant Guide. You'll find it all at mysuncoast.com/dining.
We want lean, efficient government at the federal, state, and local levels, but we also want our police to have the resources to do their jobs. In Palmetto, there is one homicide detective and too many unsolved murders. Dwayne Lindo is here with more. Dwayne.
Well, Alan, the sole detective of the Palmetto Police Department has his hands full. But as we'll find out, it will take the help of the community to solve many of these cases.
This area on 10th Street West in Palmetto looks a lot different today than it did 6 years ago. In the early morning of September 10th, 2011, it was a scene of a drive-by shooting at a place called Club Elite. In all, 24 people were shot and 2 killed.
I got a call that one of my sons were injured, and by the time I got to the club, I realized it was my son laying down on the ground. And he was deceased by the time I got there. So.
Football coach and community leader Lewis Goff lost a son that night. Although he thinks about his son from day to day, his first thought is with the people around him.
I feel more for the community because no one has been captured, but basically I just don't feel like it'll bring my son back.
The Club Elite shooting is one of a handful of unsolved cases Palmetto Police Department Detective Chad Euler is assigned to. For a city with a population of a little more than 12,000, he's it. Going through these cases with a fine-tooth comb, the Club Elite shooting is one that stands out for Euler. He says the tragedy affected so many. For him, solving these cases takes someone coming forward with information.
We're going to need a witness to come forward to tell us, to fill in some holes. As far as physical evidence, well, that would be great to have too, and that's something that we really like to have. But of course, the longer time goes, it seems the harder that's going to be to obtain.
In a small town like Palmetto, these tips are huge, and at times, it's all you have.
I mean, a lot of these cases that you're talking about here, these older cases, and to this day, I still have nothing as far as any tip. And I know that that's not an easy thing to get.
Such as the case of Jesse Schwartzman, shot and killed in 2012, and Javari Thomas in 2014.
Not only was he shot and killed, I have no reason to believe that he was the intended target.
For Euler, he says it's the family of the victims that should be on the minds of those who can help solve these cases.
There's a family who lost somebody. Whatever discomfort or apprehension they have about doing that, this family over here is suffering far greater than they can imagine.
As for Goff, he feels this case should not be considered cold, but unsolved for the time being.
It was a well thought out plan, for as I'm concerned, what went down. I guess that's basically why it's so hard for them to actually come up with somebody who done it. Because I just feel very confident them guys are doing their job. So I mean, I feel better that way. But it's just one of those things. Sooner or later, it'll come out.
Now, detectives also urges anyone with information on any of these cases to call Manatee County Crime Stoppers at 866-634-TIPS.
Dwayne, thank you. And coming up, we are joined by the one and only detective at the Palmetto Police Department and a former New York area police commissioner. In a moment, we will take it to the trapezoid.
If you are age 85 or younger, a final expense policy for seniors can pay up to $30,000 for funeral and other final expenses. You don't need a medical exam, and you can have lifetime coverage. Your premiums won't increase, your benefits won't decrease, and the policy cannot be canceled. To receive free information about final expense plans from a licensed agent in the Angel Care Network, call now.
Call 800-676-1339.
Attention, Americans eligible for Medicare. Are you getting all the benefits you're entitled to? Did you know there may be money available to lower your medical prescription costs? Call Health Markets and we'll tell you if you qualify.
Hi, I'm Dr. Martin Jeetsi. It's a new Medicare year. That means more changes and more confusion. The key question is, what can you do now to ensure you get the care you need in the coming year?
Call Health Markets today. You may qualify to save money on prescriptions. We'll help you find plans that may cost less, cover more, and could even lower your prescription costs to increase your savings. We help you find all the benefits you're entitled to, and we do it at no cost.
Make sure you have what you need to get the care that's right for you.
Find out if you qualify to receive extra help with your prescriptions. Call the number on the screen now. Representatives are standing by.
This is an important medical announcement. Xarelto and Pradaxa have been linked to uncontrollable bleeding and even death. If you've been prescribed one of these drugs and have experienced these dangerous side effects, you may be entitled to substantial compensation. Studies show that Pradaxa can cause more heart attacks than warfarin, and other countries have already issued safety warnings against this drug. Call now for a free assessment of your case and potential money damages. The call is confidential, there's no cost, and you may be eligible. Juries have awarded millions of dollars to Pradaxa victims, and thousands of Xarelto victims are filing their legal cases. Call the Drug Watch hotline if you or a loved one used Xarelto or Pradaxa and experienced uncontrollable bleeding, brain hemorrhage, or even death. You must call now.
Call 800-747-0618. 800-747-0618.
Welcome back. Solving a murder case can be a daunting task. When you're the only homicide detective in town, daunting just doesn't cover it. For example, police in Palmetto are still trying to solve the case of Club Elite in Palmetto. Almost 6 years ago, 2 people were killed, 22 wounded when gunmen opened fire just after midnight on a Saturday morning. September 12th, there are other unsolved cases in the small Manatee County community as well. And joining us for more on what can be done to help close those cases is Chad Euler, a detective with the Palmetto Police Department, and James Lawrence, who served as police commissioner for Nassau County in New York, where I went to school, the Harvard of Hempstead. Hofstra University. But Detective, let me start with you. And Dwayne reported on the Club Elite case. Where do we stand with it right now?
Well, right now, unfortunately, we still haven't closed it with any arrests. Like mentioned previously, it's been 6 years. It is frustrating, especially, and I've mentioned this before, when you have a case like that, where you have a shooting at a nightclub.
A lot of people saw it.
A lot of people, not just necessarily people at the club, but you have businesses nearby. You have people passing by in their vehicles. It's in a relatively busy street. To still not have anything so much as a vehicle description is really frustrating. You would think by now I would at least have that.
Commissioner, I bet you have seen a lot of cases like that in Nassau County and New York City, where you also worked.
Yes, of course. And as Chad said, it's someone saw something, and whether they're holding back or they're afraid to come, is one thing. But this is why I think community policing is so important. For the police to interact with people in their community prior to things like this happen, so people feel comfortable with coming forward and lending a hand in solving these crimes.
We've seen so many cases like this, and I've covered cases where where people don't want to talk to the police.
Sure.
There's a lot of other things going on.
Right.
Does that play into that here?
Oh, sure. Yeah, and that's something we run into on not just this case, but several cases where a witness is key, especially if you don't have a case that's leaving a lot of physical evidence behind or anything else that gives you any traction on a case. You need those witnesses. I mean, that's something you almost can't do without.
Given that, would you have been helped, or could you use a little extra help?
Oh, absolutely, sure.
I want to get into this more in the next segment, but when a case like this happens, where you have 2 dead and over 20 shot, how does it fall to just one person to lead an investigation like that?
Right. Well, it doesn't. I mean, there's a lead detective, but even on that night, prior to, and currently now, we have a homicide unit that's multi-agency that's ran out of the sheriff's office, which includes Bradenton PD, Palmetto, even the beach communities participate. It really helps out a lot. But even prior to that, when Club Elite took place, I mean, there was tons of resources from the sheriff's office. I even had federal agency personnel there. So when we need it, especially early on, when you've got a big scene like that, you know, you do get assistance.
But at some point, the primary shift in terms of investigator just went to you.
Eventually, things are going to thin out as far as the help from other agencies because they have their own things to do too and their own cases to work. So you're the lead, and everything's going to come through you, and eventually it's going to come down to you.
And Commissioner, in your experience, it's a little bit different because when something like this happens, let's say in Nassau County in New York, that is initially, you know, in the jurisdiction of one particular local police department, the county comes in to help.
Yes, yes. We had a top-notch homicide squad, first of all, and it would be all hands anytime a homicide occurred. So you not only have the detectives that may be assigned to those local smaller police departments, but then you'd also have the local precinct squad detectives and the homicide squads all working together to solve that case.
And obviously Nassau County is a much bigger area than this and has a lot more crime and a lot more murders, but it doesn't just fall to one person in a unit to handle a case, for instance, the size of this one.
No, it doesn't, you know, but Nassau County has 1.4 million people, and our police department is probably a lot larger than a lot of departments down here. And the idea, you know, I keep coming back to this thing about community policing because the community is an integral part of solving any case.
All right, we're going to pick up more on that in the next half hour. We are just getting started, and we will pick up the discussion right after we check the weather. Stay with us.
I dream of the creature by night and by day. Wielding my weapon, I slaughter my prey. 2,000 cash, I'll be rolling in dough. So hey, you big monster, come out from below. So hey, you big monster, come out from below.
This Sarasota Powerboat Grand Prix Minute is brought to you by Sarasota Ford.
The Sarasota Powerboat Grand Prix was first organized in 1985. What began as an annual beach picnic for local children with special needs has expanded into an 11-day festival with the races televised to more than 100 countries. The entire festival is produced by Suncoast Charities for Children. The Grand Prix not only generates revenue for charity, but also a significant economic impact. Last year's event generated an economic impact of $37 million.
They're coming from Tampa, Fort Myers, even Orlando. They're coming from everywhere for the Sarasota Ford Promise. Our promise means a new car you'll love. If not, return it for one you do. At Sarasota Ford, we promise live market pricing. We monitor national pricing on our entire inventory, so you get the best deal. In fact, we guarantee it. Bring us any competitor's ad, and we'll beat it by at least $1,000. That's why they're coming from everywhere to Sarasota Ford, where 41 meets 301. SarasotaFord.com.
Credit card debt can ruin your life. If you owe $10,000 and minimum payments are siphoning away your paycheck each month, you can get debt-free in less time than you think.
I've paid $800 a month for the past 3 years and haven't changed the balance on my credit card.
Get debt-free now has a program to reduce your debt, stop the harassing phone calls, avoid financial ruin, and settle for less than you owe.
I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders.
You're pre-approved for our special hardship program if you owe $10,000 or more. Upon payment of your new lower balance, your debt will finally shrink until you are debt-free.
My family no longer has 30 years of payments ahead of us at 20% interest.
There's no fees until you see results. So call now, make one monthly program payment, and free up your cash. Resolve your debt.
Call 800-628-1251, 800-628-1251.
Our discussion of cold cases in Palmetto continues in a moment, but right now let's get the check on our forecast from Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan.
Well, Cindy, having a direct impact on our waters. You can see some of the waves right there. That's the result of the wave action spreading out across the Gulf of Mexico. A little bit of sunshine in that picture, too. A lot more of that on our way as a result of high pressure building in, and Cindy making landfall over the Louisiana-Texas coast early in the morning on Thursday. You can see the waves still pretty high. Rip current advisory is expected to expire at 8 o'clock tonight. I think they'll let it go. Tomorrow shouldn't be as bad. The weather headlines read like this. Cindy to make landfall early Tuesday morning right there at Texas and Louisiana. 7 to 12 inches. There could be some isolated areas, could get as much as 12 inches of rainfall. wind and waves to settle on Thursday for us. Now, there'll still be winds breezy, but not nearly as windy as they have been, and all the advisories will have expired for the coastal waters along the west coast of Florida. Some big storms to the north of us right now, but the heavy weather obviously moving into the panhandle of Florida. There are trees down in Alabama right now. Right there, as you see, that's a lot of storm reports as some gusty winds moved in with the squall line there, and some of the roadways actually blocked as a result of those trees down. And heavy weather, this band right here really intensifying as it moves toward Houston right now. The low pressure center is still offshore, about 100 miles to the southeast, so that'll make landfall, as I said, just after 2. Now notice these showers approaching Northport. They were rather intense about a half hour ago, and then all of a sudden they kind of lose their punch. We'll see other showers trying to develop along the coast. They shouldn't be all that intense. A few brief showers are possible. The rainfall right there on I-75 near Veterans Boulevard up to Northport. Northport, you're getting some rain, not anything serious at this time, and looks like that'll be a trend too. Less rain expected for us tomorrow, Friday, and into Saturday. Looks like it'll be a pretty good weekend. Latest on Cindy, winds are at 50. They should stay there too. It's not expected to gain much strength before it makes landfall. That's a good sign. And the pressure, 994 millibars. That has been falling ever so slightly. There it is as it makes its way off toward the north and eventually toward the northeast, gets caught up into the westerlies and heads off toward Tennessee. Well, the remnant low and the remnants of what was Brett, still pretty active out there in the Central Caribbean, causing some problems to some of the cruise ships out there, but no organized circulation at this point. We don't expect any kind of rebound with that system. 87 degrees, but look at that dew point. It's at 75. That's high. That makes it feel like 96 degrees out there right now. That's factoring in the humidity along with the temperature. The high today was a hot one, 92. Get used to that, too. We'll see similar readings for us tomorrow with winds out of the south and southeast, and the rainfall today. Finally, a chance to dry out across the coastal locations anyway. Monthly total now at 10.01 inches, well above the average, which we should be just at 4.5 inches. For boaters tomorrow, I mentioned still a little bit breezy to start things off. It'll subside to 10 knots later on in the day, and we are anticipating choppy conditions. That chop will turn to a light chop for us on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So good boating weather for the weekend. Sunset at 8:28 tonight, and sunrise will be at 6:36. Partly cloudy, scattered storms possible, not much. Showers really. 78 for a low. Tomorrow looks good. A little bit more sunshine, high near 90. Warm weather to continue, and summer-like conditions come back to play Sunday afternoon. We'll start to see those regular afternoon storms, but until then, enjoy. Finally a chance to dry out a bit. Alan will be back with his guests right after this. Stick around.
Save big during the 4th of July clearance and pay no interest for 48 months with same-day pickup or next-day delivery. This special purchase double reclining sofa for only $4.99. This special purchase white Florida bedroom for $5.99, and the matching nightstand is free. This special purchase Serta Perfect Sleeper Queen set for $3.99. Exclusively at the Furniture Warehouse in Sarasota, Bradenton, Venice, Port Charlotte, and Ellington.
And save big.
What's a nice Jewish girl to do when she can't introduce her WASP boyfriend to her conservative parents? Hire an actor. Hilarious and insightful, Bo Jest is at the Player Center June 14th through the 25th, and it's your ticket to a sizzling summer. Call the Players at 365-2494 or visit theplayers.org. Don't miss Bo Jest.
This is an important medical announcement. Bard IVC filters have been linked to punctured veins and problems with migration. Anyone who's received a Bard IVC filter must receive medical monitoring and may be entitled to substantial compensation. If you have the Bard Recovery G2 or G2 Express filter, you are in a class of patients who should be compensated for some expenses. Call now for a free assessment of your case and potential money damages. This call is confidential. There's no cost and you may be eligible. Juries have awarded millions of dollars to people who should have been warned about the risks of the Bard IVC filters. Call the IVC Filter Hotline if you or a loved one has received an IVC filter and experienced a vein puncture or required medical monitoring. You must call now.
Call 800-329-3089. 800-329-3089.
My name is Stephen Jaffe. The law firm's name is Farmer Jaffe. One of the beautiful things about Julius is he's always smiling, and it becomes infectious. The fact that Julius has a disability has absolutely nothing to do with the quality of work that he's done. Just a great person you want on your staff.
Hi, this is Dan Marino. When your business recruits people with disabilities, everybody wins. To find out how, go to disabilitieswork.employflorida.com.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing the high number of cold cases in Palmetto and how limited resources could affect the police department's ability to solve them. Our guests tonight are Chad Euler, a detective at the Palmetto Police Department, and James Lawrence, a former police commissioner for Nassau County in New York. And Chad, that's the obvious question. Does lack of resources impede your ability to solve the cases that are on your plate?
I would say it's always better to have more. More is better as far as resources when you have a case, especially early on, when you have a lot to do and you have a lot of different directions to go. So it's always going to help. I don't know that lack of resources has kept us from being able to close any cases. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but it definitely kind of speeds things up. The more eyes to look at something, the more ideas that come in. That's never a bad thing.
So what happened? I mean, obviously you have what you're working on today and the recent criminal cases that have hot leads, but I would imagine some of these other cases, like the Elite nightclub case, I mean, you can only react to so much. You can almost only have so much on your plate.
Sure. Right, and especially the longer time goes, as more time passes, and you have new cases that come up, and those get the adequate amount of attention. So it's important to always keep your mind on these and don't forget about them. And we don't. Actually, just as recently as the last couple of weeks, I've gotten a couple calls on Club Elite. And that's something that's impressive, because I've gone years without hearing anything about Elite. So I don't forget about it. It never comes off the desk. It's always on your mind, and you're always keeping your ears open. You're always asking. And then, like I said, you get a couple of contacts from people recently that kind of gives you a little bit more hope.
Hopefully, us doing this show tonight will get your phone ringing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Commissioner, I would imagine that on a larger scale, you have had to deal with these situations. You may have overseen a larger homicide department, but you also have to make decisions in terms of in the cases that you have to work on and what's hot. But my question to you is, have you also faced in these larger departments budgetary pressures where, when budgets get slashed or get pressure, that you have to make personnel decisions in terms of how many detectives you have working on how many cases at one time?
Of course. When I joined Nassau as the police commissioner, Nassau County was in the middle of a budget crisis, and the numbers of members of the police department were dwindling. Right? Usually the uniform force in Nassau, or historically the uniform force in Nassau County was running around 3,000. And they were trending down toward about 2,400. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but somebody has to replace the work that's being done by those officers that you lose. And as Chad said, more is always better in policing. If you have 10 homicide squads, out there, knocking on doors, you're probably going to have a chance to get a better result.
Is there a number that you could put your arms around in terms of how many cases a detective can have at one time in order to efficiently be able to work on them?
I wouldn't put a number on it, because especially in the case of the squads that I've oversaw, even though a detective might be assigned a case, they work together, and they're not continuously working on that same case. So they'd be working on a number of cases.
And the difference in New York was the county handled the homicide investigations.
In Nassau County, the county homicide squad oversaw the investigation of homicide.
And now, Chad, you mentioned that a deliberate decision was made back in 2013 by the county to pool the officers, homicide officers, together. How does that work?
It works out really great, actually. In 2013, we started a multi-agency homicide unit that consists of a handful of Manatee County Sheriff's detectives, homicide detectives, that are all experienced homicide detectives, a Bradenton PD homicide detective, myself from Palmetto PD, and even there's detectives from the beach communities, the police departments out there, who also contribute to it. We work out of the same office, I mean, my cubicle is right across from a Bradenton guy and right next to an MSO detective. So it really allows for a quicker flow of information. Maybe these guys from MSO know certain people that I didn't know from Palmetto and the other way around. Information goes from detective to detective, from agency to agency, a lot quicker without any sort of red tape or any delay. And everybody's experienced, and when you get new cases, you know, you have a lead, and then you have everybody else in the homicide unit backing them up.
And I want to draw a real distinction here, because there is a difference, is there not, between a cold case and an unsolved case?
Right.
What's the difference?
Well, as far as the definition for me, an unsolved case, a cold case is a case that truly we don't have any active leads. We don't have any new information coming in. There hasn't been any new information coming in, and there doesn't seem to be anything on the horizon, and nothing gets inactivated. You know, as far as the Palmetto Police Department or homicides don't get inactivated, they still stay open and active. But the reality is there's just nothing coming in.
So the Club Elite case, what category would that fall into?
It's not cold. That would not be cold. It's an unsolved murder. It's an unsolved double murder, unfortunately. But I wouldn't label that as cold for a second.
Commissioner, do larger departments have the luxury, if you will, to have separate cold case squads that once it reaches that determination that nothing new is coming on, you still have another unit in there who could work on these cases full time?
Well, in Nassau County, we didn't have a cold case squad. But as Chad said, you don't close homicide cases. They're open, whether cold or not. New York City had a cold case squad, and they had good results. But, you know, here it raises that point again. More is better. When you have the personnel, there are a lot of things that you can do.
And we're living in a time where budgets on the local and state and federal level are being squeezed hard.
Yeah, it's being squeezed hard, but this is where the community comes. That's why communities should be involved with their police departments. Right. They should know what's going on in their community police-wise, and they should have some say in how their communities are policed. And part of being policed is the numbers.
And we will pick that up when we come back. Let's take a break, and when we return, we'll have final thoughts from our guests, plus what some of our viewers are saying about last night's topic, the local response to climate change.
With the Brinks prepaid MasterCard, it's easy to manage our money. I get a text alert every time our card is used, so we always know our balance.
And we're protected from unauthorized transactions. Brinks gives us peace of mind.
Introducing the Brinks prepaid MasterCard. With direct deposit, you can get your paycheck or government payments up to 2 days faster.
Brinks knows what's valuable to me, time.
Load money onto your card and then shop online, pay bills. With Brinks, you can conveniently manage your money online and with the mobile app. Call now or go online to get your Brinks prepaid MasterCard. And in this TV-only offer, personalize your Brinks prepaid MasterCard with your photo for added security. Brinks knows what's valuable to you. Call right now to order your Brinks prepaid MasterCard.
Call 1-800-291-4547.
Or go online. Call now.
I knew I could get myself out of this. I just needed some hope and some help.
I took the first step to recovery when I made the call.
Since 2014, Addiction Hope and Helpline has answered calls for recovery and treatment 24/7, 365 days a year. If you're depressed, drinking, using drugs, or taking pills, call now and talk to someone who cares.
I had problems just getting to sleep, drinking and using pills every night.
I feel like I'm losing control. I'm afraid I'll lose my job or even my family.
Most insurance covers substance abuse. You can get back on track. Call now for hope and help with proven gentle recovery programs.
I never thought that I could be somebody who didn't drink and use drugs.
I have something to hold on to for strength. I'm in recovery, getting the help I need.
Call 800-622-1941. 800-622-1941.
Enjoy some of the best Suncoast restaurants on me. Just go to mysuncoast.com/dining, sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already, and you can win a $50 gift card to a restaurant in our area. We'll pick a winner each week, so go on our website and sign up now.
Welcome back. For smaller agencies like the Palmetto Police Department, it can be difficult to close homicide cases. What more can be done to help get justice for the families of the victims? Our guests join us right now for final thoughts. So, Commissioner, after listening to this conversation, what do you want people to walk away from it with?
Well, you know, I want them to walk away with the feeling that it's very important for people to get involved with their police departments and to know what's going on in their community, and that they can play a role, not only when it comes budget time. You can't increase personnel without increasing the money in the budget.
Well, those are two different things because,
Yes.
and unfortunately, because of a lot of things that have happened over the last few years, they're sometimes members of the community don't believe that they're going to get a fair shake, and I know that's a whole other show,
Yeah,
but that does play a whole role.
But you see, but when you're involved, when you know your police before things happen, you'll be surprised at how better things result.
Chad, do you hope people watching this tonight who may know something about Club Elite or the other homicides that we talked about say, look, it's been 6 years. Obviously, you saw members of the victims' families who are, you lose a kid, you never forget about this.
Sure.
Might call your office and give you that one key piece of information that may help you.
No, absolutely. I mean, I always hope that. I mean, it's like I had mentioned previously, we had a couple calls just recently in the last few weeks regarding Club Elite. The more the better. If there ends up being nothing, we'll sift through those. We'll weed through that. Just if you've got something, call. Sometimes it's difficult for them to do, and they have their reasons. Just try to look past those reasons, and think about the victims' families. And he's dealt with them, I've dealt with them, and having to sit and talk to these victims' families and tell them, I'm sorry, we haven't solved your son, daughter, whatever's death. It's hard to do.
And we have to leave it there. Thank you both. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of our viewers are saying about last night's topic, the local response to climate change. Earlier this month, President Trump announced he would withdraw from the U.S. from the Paris Climate Accord. In response, state and local governments across the nation have announced that they will still abide by the goals set by the agreement. Cities in Florida are part of that group, including Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota, and Venice. Here is what some of you are saying about their action. Gary Morgan writes, it's good to see cities and states take matter into their own hands while the science-denying blowhards in Washington make cheap points with their ignorant base. David Stahl writes, I pity those who would actually worry and believe this nonsense. Must be hard carrying this angst around all the time. Much better to believe in unicorns. And Lorraine Levy writes, hey, you can inform, and if those folks want to remain ignorant and stubborn, areas that will eventually be underwater, we'll send life jackets or life vests. Well, what do you think about the backlog in cold cases in Palmetto? What more could be done to help police get justice for the families of these victims? Join tonight's conversation by visiting our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV and Amazon Fire and Roku. Thanks to our guests for being here tonight. Chad Euler is a detective at the Palmetto Police Department, and James Lawrence is the former police commissioner for Nassau County in New York. When we return, we'll have a final look at your weather, plus an act of terror. Sources say a man yelled Ali Akbar when he stabbed an airport police officer. We'll have the latest on the situation in our primetime headlines.
Hi, I'm Joan London with A Place for Mom. Over the years, we've helped thousands of families find senior care, and today's senior living communities have never been better, with amazing amenities like movie theaters, exercise rooms and swimming pools, public cafes, bars and bistros, even pet care services. And nobody understands your options like the advisors at A Place for Mom. These are local expert advisors that will partner with you to find the perfect place and determine the right level of care, whether that's just a helping hand or full-time memory care. Best of all, it's a free service. Call today. A Place for Mom. You know your family, we know senior living. Together, we'll make the right choice.
Call A Place for Mom right now to get our free ebook on financing senior care, as well as a free referral for senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-290-0352. That's 1-800-290-0352.
This is an important announcement. If you're between 50 and 85 and worried about your loved ones, you can still get affordable life insurance for peace of mind.
My life insurance coverage is guaranteed, and I was not required to get a medical exam.
I had high blood pressure and diabetes, and I got my coverage with one telephone call. No exam necessary.
I'm a smoker, and I wanted to take care of my family. I called to get my life insurance and my affairs in order. I wanted to do the right thing.
Call Final Expense No Exam Insurance. Your rates are guaranteed and will never increase.
I called and learned that this insurance cannot be canceled even if you get sick or gain weight.
And there are no restrictions on how my beneficiaries use the money when I'm gone.
Approval was easy and the price was right. I wanted to do this for my children.
Call 800-738-9812. 800-738-9812.
Your primetime headlines are coming up in a moment, but right now let's get a final check on our forecast from Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan.
Well, here's the update from the National Hurricane Center. Top winds remain now at 50 miles an hour. That's of a 7 o'clock Central Daylight Time, although it's just a little bit before that. They put it out early. Winds, it's moving to the northwest at 8. And the pressure, though, it's interesting to note, the pressure is now down to 992 millibars, indicating that the system is gaining some strength, or at least deepening, and that usually takes time for the storms to catch up to it. So it's got a little time to strengthen, but it looks like for the most part, it will be a 50-mile-an-hour storm as it makes landfall sometime after 2 a.m. along the coastline there from Texas to Louisiana, with the main threat of any rough weather to the center and to the east of the center. We've already seen that in Alabama. These are all storm reports of trees down due to a line of intense storms that moved through there about an hour and a half ago, and it looks like some very heavy weather spreading off toward Houston. This band of this feeder band into the center of the system is going to cause some problems with the possibility of some tornadoes too as it makes its way through that region. For us, the rain was heavier just about an hour ago. It is now weakening, although some light rain showers now occurring near Venice along I-75. Most of the rough weather is over here, but there's still a slight chance for a passing shower through this evening. Currently, we have 87 degrees, but the feels like temperature at 96. That's because you factor in that high humidity now at the dew point at 75 degrees, and temperatures around the area upper 80s still at Sarasota, although a bit cooler in Inglewood. Northport with that rain nearby, rain cool there at 79, 77 in Arcadia. Thursday's forecast looks good. A little bit more sunshine. There'll be a few scattered, mainly afternoon and evening storms. There'll be few and far between, though. The rain chances at 30%. Temperatures now cooler over the Great Lakes into the 60s and 70s. Buffalo, Toronto, and Detroit all well below average now, but the heat's up out west. Salt Lake City at 99, Denver 97 degrees, and the extreme heat continues in Arizona, 116 at this hour into Phoenix right now, and a bit cooler in Atlanta at 77 degrees, same in Macon. And the big story obviously is Cindy, which will be making landfall on Thursday morning. Here's the boating forecast. Seas will be 2 to 4 feet, so still a little bit choppy out there, but they'll start to settle down by the afternoon. The water temperature 86 degrees, and the UV index starting to go up as we see more sunshine in the forecast. High tide at 12:45, and another one at 10:57 tomorrow morning. The forecast tonight, warm and muggy, 78 for your low, and then 90 for high tomorrow. A few clouds, a few storms I mentioned, not much, and the rain chance is staying very low. The computer taking a break right there, but very low for us, and the wave action will settle down. Well, much more. Alan will have primetime headlines coming up right after this.
I dream of the creature by night and by day. Wielding my weapon, I slaughter my prey. 2,000 cash, I'll be rolling in dough. So hey, you big monster, come out from below. So hey, you big monster, come out from below.
For years, I told everyone my Craftmatic adjustable bed was the greatest until I got the new Craftmatic Legacy. It has an adjustable pillow feature that's awesome. You're gonna want one too when you see how little they cost.
If you've ever had a bad night's sleep, call and price the new Craftmatic Legacy. It has so much more than other adjustables and still costs up to 50% less. Featuring a rising adjustable pillow rest, bedside power plugs, underbed night lights, and more. Available in all mattress types with optional heat and soothing massage for as much as half the price of Tempur-Pedic, Sleep Number, and other adjustables. Enjoy temporary relief of low back pain, nighttime heartburn, mild arthritis. Adjust the rising pillow feature to help align your head, neck, and shoulders. See for yourself with our 30-day in-home trial. So call and price one today for less, up to 50% less.
You get so much more and it still costs less. You gotta see how little they cost.
Call 1-800-237-0214. That's 1-800-237-0214. Call 1-800-237-0214. Call now.
Hurricane season is here, and so is the official Suncoast Hurricane Guide from ABC7. This essential resource arms you with vital information you need to protect your family and property when severe weather threatens the Suncoast, including how to create your readiness plan and survival kit, shelter locations, what to do with pets, and important phone numbers. Visit mysuncoast.com and download the official Suncoast Hurricane Guide from ABC7. Brought to you by Batteries Plus, the Florida Lottery, and Sarasota Glass and Mirror.
My name is Julius. I have cerebral palsy. I work for Farmer Jeffrey Weising Law Firm. I do a lot of data entry and scanning documents. I want to increase my working experience to make the company much better. At the end of the day, it's good to think of the day's work and to think about what I have accomplished.
Hi, this is Dan Marino. When your business recruits people with disabilities, everybody wins. To find out how, go to disabilitieswork.employflorida.com.
Now for your primetime headlines. Today, lawmakers on Capitol Hill investigating Russia's meddling in the U.S. election heard from President Obama's Homeland Security Secretary, Jay Johnson, told senators Russia tried to hack into election systems of nearly 24 states. ABC's Kenneth Moten has the latest from Washington.
Blunt talk from the man once in charge of keeping the U.S. homeland safe.
The Russian government, at the direction of Vladimir Putin himself, orchestrated cyber attacks on our nation. That is a fact, plain and simple.
Former Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson, the latest ex-intelligence official to tell a Senate panel Russia meddled in the 2016 election. Johnson says one of DHS's top priorities, stopping the Russians from getting into election machines.
I was very concerned about what I was seeing, and this was on my front burner all throughout the pre-election period to encourage the states to come in and seek our assistance.
But Johnson says many states considered election security their issue, declining federal assistance. In a separate hearing, a current DHS official told senators internet-connected election networks in 21 states were possibly targeted by Russian hackers.
Do you have any evidence that the votes themselves were changed in any way in the 2016 presidential election? Dr. Lass?
No, sir. There was no detected change in the vote.
A point President Trump has often made. Johnson was asked if he saw any evidence of collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign before he left office.
Not beyond what has been out there open source.
Johnson deflected when he was asked if the Trump administration was taking the Russia threat seriously, but he warned the U.S. shouldn't lose sight of the big picture, stopping cyber attacks on our democracy. Kenneth Moten, ABC News, Washington.
New details tonight about an attack at a GOP congressional baseball practice. Today, the FBI says the shooting appears to have been politically motivated crime of opportunity. The gunman was living in his van next to the Alexandria ball field for weeks when he spotted lawmakers practicing there.
So what we do know is he fired over 60 shots from the third base side of the field. 50 of those were from his SKS rifle, approximately 50 of those were from his SKS rifle, but we do not know his intentions on the potential target.
GOP Majority Whip Steve Scalise was critically injured, and today his condition has been upgraded to fair. Capitol Police officers David Bailey and Crystal Griner were also injured. Now to Michigan, where the FBI is investigating terrorism as a possible motive after an officer was stabbed in an airport. The airport police officer is in stable condition after being stabbed in the neck at Bishop International Airport in Flint. The 50-year-old Canadian suspect is in custody. FBI officials say he legally entered the country in New York while he yelled Ali Akbar, an Arabic phrase for God is great, before the attack. There is no evidence indicating this was part of a wider plot. The airport was evacuated and closed. An update on a high-stakes election for a Georgia congressional seat. Republican Karen Handel is the victor, edging out Democrat Jon Ossoff by nearly 4 points. It was the most expensive House race in history, with more than $50 million spent. Handel says after such a contentious race, she wants to reach out to Democrats to unify the district.
The way that I can do that is through my actions and my deeds and being open and transparent, accountable and available. And that's what I intend to do. And I'm going to earn maybe they won't agree with me on everything, but if I can earn their respect that I at least listen, that would be huge.
Handel's win is notable for another reason. She is Georgia's first Republican woman to be elected to Congress. Here in Florida, homeowners whose healthy citrus trees were torn down by the state are now taking Governor Rick Scott to court. This session, state lawmakers agreed to pay out more than $37 million to those in Broward and Lee counties who had their citrus trees removed from more than a decade ago. It was part of an effort to eradicate citrus canker. Governor Scott vetoed the measure. Plaintiffs say Scott lacks the legal authority to do so because a court already ruled the state violated private property rights. Now to Hillsborough County, where the county commission has voted to keep a Confederate statue in front of the county courthouse. The Civil War Memorial was erected in 1911. Advocates of Southern heritage say removing it would dishonor those who fought in the war. Meanwhile, crews in Orlando are moving a Confederate statue from a downtown park to a nearby cemetery. The decision followed a public outcry calling it a symbol of racism and white supremacy. Medical marijuana will become legal in Florida starting in October, but Orlando International Airport doesn't want passengers bringing it through their terminals. Regardless of whether or not someone has a prescription, the airport is banning medical marijuana. Officials saying they are required to follow federal law, and under federal law, marijuana is still considered an illegal narcotic. A video showing a Florida man throwing an unknown substance into a Volusia County river, causing a disturbance, has gone viral with more than 2 million views. The caption asking, is it safe to swim in the St. Johns River? Many are now wondering if it's actually alligators in the video or the gentle giants, manatees. The video has also gotten the attention of Florida Wildlife Conservation Commission, which is investigating if the man was in fact harassing protected manatees.
If he's throwing in something that's getting him excited or startling him, then he needs to stop. I've been around here for a long time. I've never seen the manatees act like that.
In Florida, it is a second-degree misdemeanor to harass a manatee. One could also face federal charges because manatees have been classified as a nationally endangered species since 1966. And that's all the time we have for this evening. I'm Alan Cohn. Thanks for joining us and have a great night.